Jennifer, why are you a stay-at-home wife?
Samantha asked me abruptly. Well, because I believe taking care of the home is my job. Chris is busy with work, and someone has to manage things at home. Hearing that, Samantha exaggeratedly acted shocked in a theatrical way.
Housework is a job. What century are you living in? A stay-at-home wife without kids is completely worthless.
She rested her elbows on the table and mocked me with a condescending smirk. My name is Jennifer, and I'm a 34-year-old stay-at-home wife. I met my husband, Chris, at work. When I had to quit my job due to my health issues caused by overwork, Chris proposed to me. We got married when I was 30, and I've been a stay-at-home wife ever since. Chris's parents, Mary and John, find it unusual for someone to be a homemaker these days, but they've respected our decision as a couple. However, his younger sister, Samantha, who is 3 years younger than him, has been critical of me since the beginning of our marriage.
Being a stay-at-home wife is so outdated. It's the 21st century. Women should be out there thriving in the workplace just like men. You don't even have kids, so why are you living like some kind of slacker?
She's been throwing jabs like this ever since we got married. I guess, as a career-driven woman who's thriving in the workforce, she must see me as some kind of failure. I used to work just like her, but my body couldn't keep up anymore. So what could I do?
Hey, don't say such rude things to Jennifer. What happens in our marriage is between us, and we've talked it through. Stay out of it.
Whenever Samantha started picking a fight, Chris would always defend me. But that only seemed to make Samantha angrier, and she'd raise her voice even more.
Listen, Chris, if you stay with someone as worthless as her, you'll regret it someday. I'm giving you advice here. You should be thanking me.
Both Chris and I were completely exasperated by her attitude. She seemed determined to always believe she was right, no matter what. Mary and John, however, neither stopped her nor reprimanded her. It was as if they assumed their daughter was always correct, simply because she was the one saying it. Samantha is one of those high-achieving women who's conquered all sorts of challenges, from famous college to climbing the corporate ladder. She's fiercely competitive, speaks her mind without hesitation, and never backs down. She works in international trade at a major multinational company and lives alone in a downtown apartment far from her parents' suburban home. Chris, on the other hand, graduated from an average high school and a typical college before joining a fairly ordinary company. We live in a suburban area about a 30-minute drive from his parents' house. This was a decision we made together as a couple to live modestly, but it seems Chris has often been mocked by Samantha for one thing or another since they were young.
Ordinary people like you just get weeded out in the real world. Poor Chris.
That was one of her favorite phrases. However, Chris never let her snide remarks get to him.
I'm me, and the world isn't as cruel as you think. You're just overthinking it.
He'd always laugh and let her comments roll right off his back. You've always been such an easygoing person, just like me.
Exactly. That's why we're such a perfect match.
Chris and I had a wonderful relationship. Even though I felt guilty about not working, Chris always made an effort to ensure I didn't dwell on it and stood up for me against Samantha's snide remarks. To me, he was the perfect husband. Still, being called a parasite or a freeloader by Samantha didn't feel great. Since my health had improved quite a bit, I started thinking about going back to work. Of course, full-time work was still too much for me, and finding a part-time job nearby wasn't guaranteed. But I decided to give it a try, and when I visited the job center, I surprisingly found a part-time position right away. It was a shift-based job, just 2 days a week, either in the morning or afternoon. It seemed manageable without putting too much strain on my body.
Hey, don't push yourself too hard, okay? Make sure you listen to your body.
I know. Who do you think you're talking to? Hearing that, Chris chuckled softly. Though I initially planned to increase my hours once I got used to it, considering my past health issues, I decided to stick with the 2-day schedule for the first 6 months. Once I started working, I felt lighter and more refreshed than when I was staying home. Of course, work came with its own challenges and tough moments. But the feeling of being needed brought a sense of fulfillment I hadn't experienced in a while. One day, we were called over to his parents' house for a discussion. When we arrived, Samantha was already there, glaring at me with her usual sharp look. Next to her, a man sat quietly, looking a bit out of place. As soon as we sat down, Samantha suddenly spoke up.
This is James, my partner. We've decided to get married.
We were taken aback by the unexpected announcement, but since it was happy news, Chris and I congratulated them sincerely. James seemed to be the opposite of Samantha, calm and mild-mannered.
Nice to meet you, Chris and Jennifer. I'm looking forward to getting to know you both.
Nice to meet you too. He was so polite and proper that it almost made me feel self-conscious. Still, I couldn't help but wonder why Samantha, who had always mocked Chris for being so plain, would choose to marry someone who seemed so unassuming. We're not supposed to judge people by their appearance, but I couldn't help it. When Mary and John started asking him about his job and family, the reason became clear right away. He worked at a bank, and both his parents were government employees. He also owned a house in the city and was the second son. Oh, I see. He's practically the perfect candidate for marriage. His job is relatively stable, and his parents don't have to worry about layoffs. On top of that, owning a house in the city suggests they are fairly well off. Trust Samantha to pick someone like him. Next, Samantha introduced Chris and me to him.
This is my brother, Chris, and the woman next to him is his wife, Jennifer. Can you believe she's a stay-at-home wife in this day and age?
Her strange and unnecessary way of introducing me left me with no choice but to give an awkward smile. I couldn't help but notice James looking at me expressionlessly, which made me slightly uneasy.
Hey now, Jennifer isn't a stay-at-home wife anymore. She works part-time 2 days a week.
Samantha raised an eyebrow and scoffed.
2 days a week? I'm surprised anyone would even hire someone for so little. Even high schoolers work more than that these days. That's barely different from being a freeloader.
Her merciless comment brought an awkward silence over the room. I felt bad for dampening the mood of what was supposed to be a happy occasion with my presence. Well, working outside is great, isn't it? Even though it's just a part-time job, I plan to keep at it and do my best. I tried to stay composed and move the conversation along. I never expected Samantha to insult me like that in front of her partner. Does James really not mind seeing this side of Samantha? I couldn't help but feel a bit concerned for him, even though it wasn't really my place. However, it seemed my worries were unnecessary. Samantha and James appeared to be getting along well, and their wedding was set for 6 months later. When's their marriage registration? I asked Chris about their plans.
It seems James' parents want it done after the wedding.
I see. Well, I guess some families prefer it that way. I didn't think much of it. I hope it'll be a wonderful wedding.
Yeah, do you think she might mellow out a bit once she's married?
That would be nice. But people don't change that easily. Well, it's a happy occasion, so let's set aside any grudges and celebrate. The wedding day finally arrived. The sky was a bright, clear blue. The weather was neither too cold nor too hot, just perfectly refreshing. I put a little extra effort into my makeup and wore a brand new dress, feeling a bit more excited than the bride herself. I'm getting way too carried away. How embarrassing. I laughed at myself quietly. When we arrived at the venue, I was chatting with family members in the waiting room when Samantha, dressed in her wedding gown, approached me discreetly.
Oh, Jennifer, you actually came.
What do you mean? I got an invitation, didn't I?
It takes guts for a freeloader to show up at a wedding.
I had no idea what she was talking about. Why wouldn't I come? I even RSVP'd to the invitation. Samantha continued.
I thought freeloaders would be too embarrassed to show their faces in public, but you've got some nerve.
This is a special day, so isn't it better to focus on that instead of making comments like these? I replied as calmly as I could.
Talking back now? Are you trying to ruin my wedding?
What?
Tell me, how do you feel coming here today? That dress and bag. You bought them with Chris's money, didn't you? How tacky, putting on such an effort with someone else's money. Are you here looking for a new man? Dissatisfied with Chris's low income and searching for a new host to leech off?
Enough already. I raised my voice, and everyone turned to stare at us in shock.
This is why I can't stand stay-at-home wives with no social skills. Today is my day. If you cause any more trouble, I'll have you thrown out.
She's the one who started this fight, and now she's acting like the victim. I wanted to yell back, but I was the one drawing judgmental looks from everyone around me. Holding back tears of frustration, I suddenly saw Chris rushing over to check on me.
Are you okay? If it's too much, you don't have to attend the reception.
But leaving now would embarrass Chris, Mary, and John. I'm fine. I'm sorry for causing a scene. As I was talking to Chris, a man suddenly approached me.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Forgive me for asking, but have we met somewhere before?
What? I don't think so.
I see. I'm Matthew, a friend of James. I'll be giving the speech as his best man.
I see. I'm Jennifer, Samantha's sister-in-law. I'm sorry for the commotion earlier. When I apologized, Matthew still looked at me curiously.
I'm sure we've met somewhere before. Wait,
As I listened to him, I started to remember too.
I can't believe we're meeting again like this.
It's such a coincidence. I never imagined I'd run into an old acquaintance in a situation like this. It wouldn't be long before our connection became clear. The reception began. I decided to focus on enjoying the food since I didn't want to see Samantha's face anymore. After all, I gave them a generous wedding gift. Might as well get my money's worth. When it was time for the best man's speech, Matthew, the man who had spoken to me earlier, stepped up to the microphone. It was a great speech, filled with humor and heartfelt moments. Then he said something that caught me completely off guard.
On a personal note, I was reunited today with a senior doctor who mentored me back when I was a medical resident.
He went on to talk about how much it meant to him when I encouraged him during a time when he almost gave up.
To learn that this person is James's sister-in-law feels so heartwarming. Once again, congratulations to the happy couple.
I was stunned. Never in a million years did I expect to be mentioned like this at the reception.
Did you know him?
Chris asked, and I gave a small nod. Most of the wedding guests were hearing about my pre-marriage profession for the first time. As murmurs spread across the tables, Samantha's loud voice echoed from the head table.
A doctor? What does that mean?
Her sudden outburst shocked James, who began to panic, fumbling nervously. The host and venue staff were equally stunned.
What's going on? Isn't she just a freeloader? Why?
Samantha's screams were the only sound in the otherwise silent room. The host tried to move the reception forward with a cheerful tone, but the atmosphere remained tense. Later, after Samantha and James left for their outfit change, a staff member approached Chris and me to say Samantha wanted to see us in the waiting room.
What's going on? Did you trick me?
As soon as we opened the door, Samantha lunged at me with those words, only to be restrained by Chris holding her back. Flailing in frustration, Samantha began lashing out at everyone around her.
Dad, Mom, why didn't you tell me who she really was? Were you all lying to me?
No, that's not it. We didn't know either.
Mary frantically shook her head in denial. And it was true. I had kept quiet about my past as a doctor and the fact that I had left because the work was too overwhelming. I didn't want anyone, aside from Chris, to know I was a weak person who had run away from hardship. Luckily, Mary and John weren't the type to pry into our lives, and Samantha had always dismissed me as a lazy freeloader, showing no interest in my past. I never imagined my history would come to light like this. I had once worked as a surgeon. I worked at a general hospital, where my responsibilities went beyond my duties as a doctor. Between training programs, conferences, and other obligations, my monthly working hours exceeded 300. On top of that, I was tasked with mentoring medical residents, pushing myself far beyond my limits. It was no surprise that my health began to fail. I eventually became so weak that I couldn't even walk straight. Chris, who worked as a pharmaceutical sales representative, frequently visited my workplace. He showed kindness to me when I was completely worn out, and that kindness eventually led to his proposal. That's the true story.
I can't believe it. Why you?
Everyone in the waiting room was desperately trying to calm Samantha down, but her anger showed no signs of subsiding.
What was with that speech? You planned it just to humiliate me, didn't you? You're such a selfish woman.
Wait a second. I had nothing to do with his speech. At that moment, James interrupted.
Well, actually, he ran the speech by me, and I approved it. Was that wrong?
Oh, so that's how it happened. While Samantha's behavior was inexcusable, even James should have realized that praising someone other than the bride during the reception was inappropriate. Clearly, he was a bit clueless too. But by now, Samantha didn't seem to care about any of that.
This is the worst. You ruined my wedding. You told me she was just a freeloader. Why didn't you tell me she used to be a doctor? You've been mocking me all along, haven't you, you horrible woman?
Really? You assumed I was a freeloader all on your own. That's your fault. I didn't see any reason to tell you. What does my past have to do with you?
Shut up. Maybe you were something once, but now you're just working a part-time job 2 days a week. Don't act like you're so great.
It's true I work 2 days a week, but it's as a doctor at a hospital nearby. I don't think that's something just anyone can do. At this, Samantha seemed to have no retort.
Why someone like you? How can someone like you be a doctor?
She spat out her emotions in a flurry of incoherent words.
I hate you. Get out of here.
She shoved me, trying to force me out of the waiting room. I was already planning to leave. I don't like you either. For the first time, I openly showed my hostility toward her. Samantha, seemingly caught off guard by my sharp tone, froze for a moment before screaming at the top of her lungs.
You're a curse on everything.
Even as I looked at the pitiful bride, her face caked with makeup and her perfectly styled hair now disheveled, I felt no emotion at all. As I ignored Samantha and left the waiting room, Chris spoke up.
It was a complex after all.
A complex? According to Chris, Samantha had aimed to get into medical school during high school. However, she wasn't good at math or science and eventually gave up on that dream.
She must be really frustrated knowing you're a doctor. Even so, her behavior was completely uncalled for. I'm sorry you had to deal with that.
It's okay. Honestly, I felt better after standing up for myself. Just then, Mary and John approached us.
We're sorry about Samantha. But please, today is her big day, so could you let it go?
She's upset right now. Please try to understand.
What they really meant was that I should leave. Realizing this, I said to them, "We'll go. It seems like she won't calm down as long as I'm here." Hearing that, they looked visibly relieved. It didn't bother me anymore. It was natural for them to prioritize their daughter over their daughter-in-law. Chris and I both said, "From now on, we'd prefer not to keep in touch. Take care and stay well." They stared at us in shock, mouths agape, as we left the venue. After we departed, Samantha broke down in tears, and the reception had to be canceled. Appalled by Samantha's disgraceful behavior, James called off the engagement on the spot, and the wedding was officially canceled. I've heard that Samantha is still blaming me for ruining her wedding, but I couldn't care less. Anyone can see it was her own fault. She's just facing the consequences of all the people she's ridiculed over the years. I didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for her. Chris and I have now completely cut ties with his family. Don't you feel lonely being apart from your family? I asked him.
What are you talking about? You're my family, Jennifer. And besides,
Chris gently placed his hand on my stomach.
we need to create a warm, loving home for this little one too.
His smile felt like it was wrapping me and the baby in my belly in a comforting embrace.